Hey everybody, welcome back inside the DTECH Interview Studio. It's day 3 here at our big event, so my voice is starting to go. I apologize in advance for any hiccups I might have. I got some halls in the pocket just in case. I've also got a very special guest joining us at the DTECH Interview Studio presented by OATI, a friend of mine that I had a chance to connect with last year, Arvind Satyam, co-founder of Pano AI. It has been a huge year for your company. Take us through what the last, 365 days or to the last DTECH or so was like for you.
Paul, well, first of all, great to be here. And seems like we always try to catch up around Super Bowl time. We both have a love for sports, so appreciate that. On the Pano side, last year we talked about how important artificial intelligence is around helping utilities on their resiliency strategy. We were looking at the wildfire situation. The reality is the wildfire situation just continues to get worse, right? Impacting communities, impacting utilities. And I think that's where we really help utilities as part of that and really be an integral part of their strategy. On the company side, we went from 80 people at the start of last year to over 150. We also raised our Series B, so now we've raised almost 90 million in total. What's really interesting there is we're really investing on the development side of it, on enhancing the AI, adding a lot more around situational awareness, and frankly, just scaling. So today, we're contracted to be in 18 states in the U.S. A year ago when we were chatting, a lot of the eastern side of the U.S. was kind of paying attention. They're moving now, right? So the wildfire risk no longer is a West, Midwest story. It's a national story. Second thing that we consistently hear is, at the end of the day, utilities are not the ones that are fighting the fires, but utilities are very key when it comes to resiliency of the grid. And so this is about investing in it and also making sure that first responders and other stakeholders move. So we're doing a lot of that. Beyond working with utilities, we've invested significantly to also work with federal and state and local. We also work with ski resorts. We work with private landowners. And I think that's been an important part of the narrative, which is utilities are not the only stakeholders that are feeling it. We all feel the wildfire pain. How do we help that? And then lastly, from an overall scale standpoint, when we started the business around 5.5 years ago, there were only a handful of companies that were focused on this idea of technology around wildfires. Happy to report that ecosystem's grown. And we think that's really important. So we got some exciting announcements around that, but just proud of the progress and more importantly, the impact that we're making in this space.
I think that impressive growth sort of lends credence to the idea that what you're working on is really serious and really important. And obviously, as you mentioned, the stakeholders go far beyond utilities when we're talking about wildfire awareness. And as that space becomes more flooded, I imagine you've got to pivot and you've got to find the next new thing and you've got to find the next best AI integration. How have you had to evolve what you're offering to sort of keep pace with not only the demand, but growing competition?
So the thing that we focus on historically is being able to see a fire start as soon as it emerges. So we've had to continue to evolve that AI model. So imagine if you're Waymo and all you're doing is driving in San Francisco, that's what you're seeing. We have had to train our model across multiple states in the US, across states in Australia, Canada. So the AI continues to evolve. Next thing that we're doing is pulling satellite data. So you've got terrestrial detection supported by ground truth. But this is where being able to integrate additional insights becomes compelling. And we've heard customers say, we rely on your data for detection, ground truth, but we also need data around real-time weather. So super excited to share with you that today we announced a partnership with a company called Western Weather. Utilities, other end users, they want to get micro visibility to weather. So it's no longer the 10 miles apart. What is the weather like half a mile away? They're able to get wind speed, gusts, relative humidity. So they're able to get a real-time picture there. Next thing that we're also doing is partnering with a company called Technosova, who are leaders when it comes to spread modeling and predictive modeling. So in essence, if you can imagine, that there's a fire start at 10:30 in the morning in a given location. Well, what is the consequence? What could that look like 8 hours from now? How do we use historical data and model out based on fuel and the conditions what it could be? So if you can pair ground truth, what's happening on the ground, with what it could be like it will fundamentally change how you would respond to that. And this is just a start. I think what we're starting to see is as the technology improves, this idea of getting a common operating picture to make real-time decisions, it helps the end users. They're able to make that decision in the moments, takes down risks, helps keep the power on, and also protect the communities.
When we talk about some of these energy industry applications for artificial intelligence, one, yours is one that always comes up as like a wow, of course. How did everybody not think of that? But that said, it seems like it's becoming its own entity where artificial intelligence has sort of like taken off and become like this. I don't want to call it a monster in the room, but everyone wants to use it or integrate it or talk about it. But Pano AI has been doing it in a way that's really impactful for quite some time. Do you think about that technology? You think differently than some of your peers do, especially as it becomes more pervasive in the space?
Yeah, AI's evolved a lot in the last 5 to 6 years. And I think there's this, depending on where you sit in this equation, a lot of people see incredible use cases for AI. Some people are fearful, and I totally appreciate that. But I think when it comes to AI in the energy space, the AI boom, the infrastructure build out, and the reliance of power, it's key. And I was in Davos 2 weeks ago. USA House had a strong representation there, and I was part of the Energy Summit, which was talking about US AI leadership and also needing to build out more reliable power. And one of the shots to that is extreme weather events. And so I think in order to support the AI boom, you also need to think about reliable power. But this is a solution that actually helps keep the grid and the power on to go support that build out. And so I fundamentally see this where AI can really help improve that insight, help you make those decisions real time. And the proof's in the pudding. So last year we had 725 vegetation fires. We detected and notified half of them before any other notification went out. And we had so many case studies, and I'll just touch on one, for instance. Minnie Creek, it was in Washington. We were working with Avista. This was a notification where we notified 4 minutes before 911. It was during conditions that were difficult. And so what we were able to do at that point, the utility was able to monitor where it is relative to their grid. So they could understand the risk to their assets in real time, what's going on. But at the exact same time, Washington DNR, the local agencies were able to mount an initial attack and keep that fire small. And so I look at that and I think this is where AI can fundamentally help change that game. And really, I think we look at that and we think about the impact that way.
I'm glad you brought up those real utility use cases, because when we start talking about this stuff, it sounds an awful lot like ideas and what if we did this and this might work. No, this is actually happening. This is actually being used. This is actually protecting infrastructure. It's actually saving lives. Is there a part of wildfire detection that you think your utility partners and others are maybe not paying enough attention to right now, or maybe something else that's crossed your desk that you're like, we're going to be having this discussion next year at DTECH?
Yeah, I think we touched on the ecosystem. We touched on being able to integrate many data insights. I think a lot of this now, the industry is really saying, I don't want to buy point solutions. I want to try to figure out how to be additive in the dollars that I spend. Affordability, Paul, as you've probably seen, is top of mind. We see this from utility CEOs. We see this from regulators. We take that very seriously as a vendor that's serving this industry. How do we help create solutions which are additive? So I think a big part of this is how do we bring partnerships like the ones we've announced this week, but also how do we work with a broad range of stakeholders to ensure that we reduce risk? And then lastly, I would leave you with this. We're seeing innovation today, but there's also innovation that we're seeing when it comes to drones, autonomous drones that may be sent. So there's a lot of stuff that I think we're going to see in terms of innovation that allows us to go mount that initial attack much more effectively. That fundamentally keeps reducing risk.
We'll keep our eyes out for that innovation. I know we're not the only ones. One last shameless plug before we say goodbye. I heard you were in Time Magazine recently. Tell me about that.
Well, thank you, Paul. So Time Magazine had us on the list of 100 most influential companies.
No big deal. Just 100 or so.
Humble recognition.
Very cool.
And thank you on behalf of the team, but also the customers and the partners that we serve. You know, the thing that we think about when my co-founders, Sonia and I, started this business 5.5 years ago, a lot of people are frankly just wondering, what is this real? I mean, I remember the first board meeting I presented at, I got introduced as Pano AI. So things have moved a long way. I think it's a recognition of the impact. And, you know, I think it's important on behalf of the industry, if we can do our part to help support, drive more innovation, get more funding for this ecosystem, we all benefit through that.
I'm never going to not laugh at the Pano AI part. Arvind Pano AI.
I'm still looking for that guy out.
From Pano AI. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
DTECH
Paul.
Interview
Really
Studio.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.